Hey guys, Camden, I know it's been a while since I reviewed Shameless. I know the last episode I reviewed was episode 9. I was gonna review episode 10, like, when I watched it, I just never got a chance to. And then episode 11 I watched yesterday. So what I decided to do, ultimately, is I watched episode 11, figured I was gonna review, but I'm like, no, I'll probably just wait till episode 12 comes out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to review episodes 10 to 12, give you my thoughts on each of the 3 episodes, and basically talk about how the season ended, what I think of the season overall, predictions for season 7, and yeah. So first of all, what are my thoughts on these last 3 episodes overall? I will say that this second half of the season has been a big improvement over the first half. You guys know I was not a huge fan of the first half of the season at all. I thought there were a lot of plots that weren't going anywhere. And granted, there were things that were dropped in these 3 episodes that I still don't understand. And especially episode 10, there were definitely some things that I just don't get that were kind of dropped and things like that. But 11 and 12 were almost perfect. I mean, I almost have no problems with 11 and 12, and that's a big deal because you guys know, for me at least, this was my least favorite season of Shameless. I'll get into that at the end of this video, but let's talk about episode 10 first, because there's a lot to get into with episode 10. Not a whole lot to get into, but there definitely is a good amount of stuff. Mainly Debbie. Let's talk about Debbie first, because episode 10 mainly did focus on Debbie. Basically, Debbie, as we know, she wants to raise this baby. She's now in this commune, and Queenie's put her there to have this baby, and you can tell right away that Debbie is going into labor. She's going into labor. She wants to find out, she basically starts to realize that this is not a great thing. She's experiencing terrible pain. She doesn't know what's going on, and she just wants the baby out. She wants to do whatever she can to get the baby out of her, and at first, you don't really know if this is really going to work, because at first, we don't really know what's going to happen here, and Frank is trying to find Debbie to talk about baby names, and is approached by Queen, learns that Debbie's been moved to the birthing tent since she may be in labor, and Frank, of course, didn't know this, and there was a really weird thing with Frank in this episode, like commune life and things like that. I don't know, I didn't really care about any of that stuff. I'm not going to talk about that. That was like the one thing about this episode I really didn't like. But Frank jumps from 10 to 10, and he finds like this fight breaking out and everything, but basically the ladies in the tent, they try to calm her into letting nature take its course, which she doesn't care about. She just wants drugs, and she wants it out now. She doesn't care what happens, and you don't really know if this is really gonna work, if they're gonna have to, like, abort it. I mean, I was thinking that she might have a miscarriage or something. I really didn't know what was gonna happen here. Basically, I love the way this scene was done, because she wakes Frank in the middle of the night, begs him to leave with her, not wanting to leave his newfound paradise. He finally gives in to her, and I love the way that this was done. I thought this was a very good scene, and you see that Frank is going to leave Queenie. He's going to leave Queenie, he's going to forget about her, and he's going to focus on his family. And you really see that in these last 3 episodes. Frank is really trying to make up for all the bullshit he's done, all the abandoning his family. He really wants to make things better, and you definitely see that, and I think it's a good arc for Frank to have. Frank has kind of been in this, I think, this point of the season where we really didn't know what to do with him, but I feel like now they are trying to figure out what to do with him. Like, they're trying to just make him make up for all the times he didn't spend with his family, and now he's trying to spend them with his family, because as we know, he really wants this, Debbie's daughter. He wants to bond with her, we see, and definitely, basically, he gets her home right away. They get out of this commune, because they know it's just not the safest place for her to have the baby, so they get home, and literally everyone shows up. Like, Fiona's there, Lip is there, everyone is there to see her deliver this baby, and I love seeing that. It was just such a great scene, because you see that at the end of the day, even though everyone's been really divided this season, everyone's kind of had their own thing to do, they're still there to support Debbie. I definitely really enjoyed that, and basically, we see after this, Debbie tells Frank that he's the only one that has ever been there for through the whole pregnancy, and we see Frank is kidnapped by G-Dog's croonies, and Debbie is left on her own as her water just breaks in the streets, and screaming for help, the family race her inside and frantic about how to deliver the baby, and luckily they look up something on the internet, they're able to deliver it, and it's a girl. Frank kind of gets beaten up by, like, G-Dog, which that kind of goes away, which I'm happy about, because that really wasn't working, and we realize it's a girl. She wants to name the baby Franny after Frank, which everyone's surprised about that. She names it after Frank, which now we have 2 Showtime shows where characters have a baby named Franny, that being Homeland and now Shameless. And Fiona really wants to go in the ambulance with Debbie, but Debbie says no, she wants to do this on her own, which is what Debbie promised, and you don't really see it as Debbie being like, no, I don't want you to do this for me. You see it more as Debbie being like, I did this to myself, I need to do this on my own, and it's a really sad scene, but it's a very bittersweet scene, and you don't really know what she's gonna do, if she's gonna keep this baby or if she's gonna give it up for adoption. You don't really know, and they just look sad. She's riding away in the ambulance. Fiona's realizing she really couldn't do anything we're seeing. It's very sad, and I really did feel bad for Debbie in this scene, but basically, there's a huge, like, shootout that happens with Frank after this. I don't really want to talk about it because there wasn't a whole lot that happened there, because Frank does sneak away and everything, because some bullets go off, and I thought that was very interesting. Again, we knew this was coming because Frank got himself involved with this whole situation with the opium and things like that, and then what he did to Carl, we knew this was going to happen, so definitely I'm not surprised about that. But going back to Debbie, basically, she tries to raise his baby on her own. She decides to raise Franny, and she's not getting any sleep. She's trying to get the baby to school, and she doesn't want anyone to help her, and throughout the episode, everyone's saying, let us help you, let us help you, and it gets to the point where she just, she has so much sleep deprived, she's like sleep deprived, she's so sleep deprived that she gets up in the morning and she starts acting like Fiona, which is a very scary scene. If I had to pick an episode 11 was definitely my favorite. I definitely will say that. Episode 11, out of all the episodes this season, was definitely my favorite. I love the way it was done. It's kind of a scary scene, though, because she starts acting like Fiona. She's asking about breakfast and everything. And it gets to the point where she's trying to read Franny a story, and she literally passes out, drops the baby, which freaks out Fiona and Sean, obviously. They rush to see the baby. And we basically realize in this scene, we realize here that Frank decided to with Derek. The reason that Debbie will never see Derek again is because Derek said Frank said to Derek's parents that Derek statutory raped her, and then Derek will never see her again, which is crazy, but it's totally something that Frank would do. You can tell that he really doesn't want Derek in her life, and definitely I think that's very interesting. But just the fact that Frank is doing all these things, not for himself, but for his family, is very interesting. I definitely like that. And that brings me to Fiona and Sean, because Fiona and Sean, we know they're trying to plan out this wedding. Episode 10, not too much happens. Sean decides to move in to the house, basically, so that way they can get used to living together, which I thought was definitely really good, and I definitely enjoyed that. And she also gives blessings from Will and his mom. Will's okay with them getting married, you see. But she also tells Sean no sex before marriage, and he's obviously kind of upset about that because he wants to have sex with her, but it doesn't seem like she wants to. And basically, V decides to take her to this bachelorette party where you see Kev, Tommy, Kermit, some other guys from the Alibi. They're doing this little strip show for her, which I thought was pretty funny. But episode 11 is really when things get crazy, because Frank really wants to help them with this wedding. He wants to get involved. He doesn't just want to do this on his own. He really wants to help them out, and he's going to do whatever he can to help them out, and even if they don't really want him to, because Frank wants to obviously be the one to walk her down the aisle. The dad typically is the one that does that, and she teases him it's also traditional for the dad to pay for everything too, and just chat and just laughs, but basically he says that he's going to pay for the wedding, and basically, that's exactly what he decides to do. He decides to, but what he does is pretty crazy. He goes on the streets, pretends that Liam has AIDS, and basically tries to get money from that. Doesn't really do much of anything, but yeah, he actually does try to do this. He actually does try to get them the money and everything to prove his worth to Fiona, and it gets to the point where things just get crazy. I mean, Sean is not buying that Frank is doing all this, and especially after they find out what Frank did to Debbie, Sean kind of freaks out. They freak out, and he gets really upset, and basically, we see everyone but Fiona gets to fuss over the baby, and basically Sean can tell that Frank to quit using his stuff. Frank just proclaims it's under his roof, it's his, and that is when Sean just loses it. Because Frank hasn't really done anything. I mean, he's suddenly just being there for them. Sean was the one that decided to move in. He just wails on Frank. They get into this huge fight. I mean, it gets crazy. They start punching each other. You don't know what's going to happen here, and Fiona basically tells Frank, I don't want you at the wedding. I don't need you at the wedding. Stop trying to do these things for me. And she just kicks him out. And I think she had a right to do that, definitely. I mean, this was her wedding. She didn't tell Frank to interfere. She jokingly said, you can help us, but she didn't really need him to do all this stuff. And you see Frank is really upset about this, actually. He actually wanted to, he actually is really upset about it. And also, a brick comes flying in through the window with Frank's name on it, and they act as if it's no big deal, but Sean tells them that it should be. They need to start saying boundaries with Frank because next time someone could get hurt. And at this point, you can see Sean's emotions about Frank using them are really starting to heat up. Like, he doesn't care. He knows that Frank has used them his entire life, and he's tired of it. He doesn't want Frank to do it anymore. And he kind of actually gets through to Frank, I think, because Frank, we see, is writing the L where some guy's questioning about the ass being he looks like he got. Frank tells him all about what a jerk his daughter's fiance is. Now he wishes he was just dead. And the guy has so much money he has and throws out the whole hypothetical thing to Frank about taking somebody out. And Frank gives him some cash, half now, half when the job is done. And, I mean, it's crazy. You don't know if Frank's actually going to kill Sean. I mean, it's really crazy. You don't know what Frank's going to do here. And the way they left that off, I thought was very interesting, definitely. So, we'll get to them when we get to the finale. But I thought, out of everything, episode 11, like I said, was very well handled. I also really like what they did with Lip, because Lip, we see, is just going on this downward spiral in these episodes. He's losing his job. I mean, he's doing drugs constantly. And it gets to the point in episode 11 where Professor Yowens has to sit down and have a conversation with him, tells him not to use anymore. And obviously, Lip gets really upset because Professor Yowens, this is the guy that Lip has had to cart around this entire season, get him breakfast, things like that, just because he's been using. And, Yowens has no right to be upset with Lip. No, he doesn't. And Lip basically loses his position at the sorority, and he basically loses his position from Yowens as well. He ends up beating his car, he freaks out on him, and he has every right to be upset. I'm not upset that Lip freaked out on him. He has every right to be. I understand why he's upset, and I definitely can understand why Lip got angry with him the way he did. He had every right to be angry with him, and I'm glad that Lip actually got angry with Yowens, because he had every right to be, definitely. So I really like the way that scene was done. Definitely very interesting. And I like the way that they did that. But basically, things are not good with Lip at all. Carl, I like what we had with Carl in this episode, because Carl and Dominique, we see, are really starting to become a thing. Her father isn't very proud of her father is very strict, as we see. He also doesn't know, obviously, that his kids are having sex. He doesn't know that either, so they have to hide that. But you really see that Carl does care for Dom, and I like seeing that. I think probably one of the best things they've done this season is drop that whole Carl gangster thing, because it wasn't working, and put Carl in this direction of actually being one of the most responsible, well-rounded of the Gallagher family, honestly. He's becoming very well-rounded, he's becoming very smart, and I really like that. And we do see that Carl has a job at the restaurant washing dishes, and Dom said that her father keeps drilling Carl, not giving him a chance to make her happy. He offers for Carl to ride along with him that day, and after she walks away, he tells Carl no matter what happens, he's still not going to trust him, and Carl tries to convince him that he's straight, as they bust some innocent-looking guy who ends up having some rock, and it gets really crazy because this whole chase goes on, and Carl actually really enjoys this, we see. Carl actually wants to become a cop, and this is a way different direction for Carl to go in, but it does make sense, because Carl, we know was how disturbed he was when he saw Nick and things like that, and how, he didn't realize how bad of a situation in the gangster business really is, and now he wants to be in the opposite side. He wants to be a cop, and it seems like that's the direction we're going in, and I mean, everyone seems to support it, and I definitely like seeing that, but it's an interesting direction to take his character in. I like that we saw that, and he can't get into junior school, so he was hoping Dom's dad could pull some strings for him, but he just tells him to try and become a human first, just go buy a bag of groceries, and, Dom's dad just doesn't really support Carl, you can see. He doesn't think that Carl's a very well-rounded person, he doesn't like Carl in general, which is very interesting, and I thought overall that was definitely very interesting what they did with Carl. So interesting stuff there, but I did like that Carl is genuinely trying to be a cop. He actually wants to be a cop. I like seeing that. I think it's a good direction to put him in. Ian, meanwhile, as we know, Caleb has AIDS, and basically Ian's trying to get tested, and they start bonding over this, because we know Ian's been through a lot worse, and eventually Ian just comes out and basically tells him about all the stuff he did at the club, and how he made a porno, and how he's done all this stuff, and Caleb is not upset about this. He's happy that Ian shared this with him. He's happy that Ian isn't perfect, and he's happy that he is not as bad as Ian, which I like seeing. I thought that was really good. But then things get really bad, because if he basically goes to the EMT to take his test, but they then realize that he lied on his paperwork, and even though he's the only other person that his boss who scored perfectly on both tests, she fires him on the spot since he can't be trusted, and you're wondering, is this going to ruin things with Caleb? It doesn't seem to. It seems like him and Caleb are still together, but it doesn't really seem to be ruining anything, and yeah, so the only problems I had in all three of these episodes, besides the commune stuff with Frank, thought that was dumb, and I'm glad he got rid of Queenie as well. Queenie's not gone. I'm sure we're going to see her again. What happened to her? I don't know. It seemed like he just kind of abandoned her at that commune and then just left because he wanted to focus on his family, which I do like seeing. But the only thing I didn't love was the whole Kev v Svetlana situation. I just thought it got a little silly. I really did. I understood the V and Svetlana, they have to pretend to be this married couple for Svetlana's green card. Kev tries to like come into the whole situation and they start having threesomes and things like that. It gets really crazy. They're emigrated and Kev has to pretend that his wife is all of a sudden that V's all of a sudden lesbian and things like that. I mean, it really is a crazy situation. Very crazy the way that all played out. And just for me, it was really silly. I don't love that whole plot. But out of everything, that's the only thing I'm complaining about. I mean, this was pretty good. And the finale especially. Let's get into the finale because that's mainly what I want to talk about. I mainly want to talk about the finale of this season, which I definitely really enjoyed the season finale. I don't think it was a perfect season finale by any means, and I don't think it's as good as last year's finale, but I do think it was a very well done finale, and I definitely enjoyed the way that it was done. I thought it was overall really, really good. Because let's first talk about the big stuff. Obviously, the wedding was the main subject of the finale, and I really didn't know. I mean, would Frank and Fiona, Sean and Fiona actually get married? I mean, this is never a show where Fiona's gotten what she wanted. Fiona's always been shit on. That's how it's been the entire show. Fiona's never gotten what she wants, and there's always things that happen to her, and this episode was no different. We'll get into that, though, because basically we see the kids have kicked Frank out of the house, and he's been sleeping in the van, and after everyone's asleep, he breaks it back into the house through the vents, and he still wants to be there. He steals some money, he peers into Sean's boots, rubs his toothbrush on his butt. I mean, it's crazy what he's doing. You don't know, again, if he's actually gonna physically kill Sean, what he's gonna do. I mean, it's really crazy what's going on in this episode, but Fiona is really excited about her wedding. You really see everyone's really excited. They all want to really pitch in. But first they have to pick up their wedding band, and Fiona's scheduled dance class with them. I mean, she's gone all out to make this the best wedding possible. And Sean even has to pick up his son, has to pick up Will and everything. They're really trying to make this the best wedding. The only problem is Debbie. Debbie does not want to go to the wedding, mainly because Fiona didn't support her with Franny. And I think Debbie has every right to be upset with Fiona. I mean, Fiona didn't support her. Fiona hasn't done anything for her. Fiona doesn't really want her there. And Fiona did agree to help her, but, Debbie feels that since Fiona didn't want her to have the baby in the first place, there should be no reason why she should go to Fiona's wedding, because Fiona didn't want her to have this baby. It meant a lot to Debbie. She wanted to have Franny, and, Fiona suggests that Franny be the flower girl, which Debbie thinks is ridiculous, since the fact that Franny can't even walk yet, and Franny's, not even a month old. It's crazy to think about that Fiona wants that, but that's kind of what Fiona wants, and Debbie really struggles with going to this wedding and everything. But you do see that Debbie still taking care of Franny is a problem, because there's a scene where she goes to the doctor, and Franny has this really bad rash, and the doctor's not really concerned about Franny. They're more concerned about Debbie and what this is doing to her. If she can really do all this, and yeah, it's pretty crazy to think about. I mean, Debbie, definitely she's trying to raise a baby on her own, but she needs some help, definitely. I think Debbie's going to realize that next season, that she can't do this all on her own. She wants to do this on her own, but she can't do this on her own. She needs someone to help Franny. That's just something she needs. I mean, even though she wants to raise Franny on her own and feels that it's her duty to do that, yes, you need to be a good mother, but you do need some hands along the way. You can't do everything on your own. I think she needs to realize that, because she's not realizing that. That's something that definitely needs to happen. I think she definitely needs to realize that, and definitely, I'm interested in seeing really what's going to happen there, because Debbie really does need to realize that, she needs help, definitely. She can't do this on her own. So the wedding happens, everything seems good, Sean and Fiona, they have this really nice scene. I like the scene where they're dancing together, and then the scene where she realizes the kind of some of the names he's had, and basically you don't know, again, Frank, you don't know what he's doing. You think he's gonna kill Sean, you don't know what he's gonna do. It's really crazy, because he's going to the factory, he's finding Bruno, the guy who gave him $1,000, on the train to kill Sean. I mean, you don't know what he's gonna do. And if he killed Sean, I mean, it would kind of make sense, because Frank wanted to be in Fiona's life, and Sean's kind of taking that place, and it wouldn't really be, it kind of would make sense if Frank would have killed Sean. So we're really thinking that, holy shit, Frank's actually gonna kill Sean. You think something terrible is going to happen like that. But basically, they're also creeped out by how close Svetlana, Kev, and V have become, which I thought was pretty funny. I like that they kind of made a joke about in this episode. But again, Frank's hitman has bailed. He hits the street with Plan B. He's trying to buy a gun with the money he stole from Sean so that he can kill himself and kill him himself. And it's really crazy the way that was done. So basically, make a long story short, we get to the wedding and everything is just chaotic. You see Lip is throwing up constantly. He's in really bad shape, and Ian's really concerned about him. Lip's trying to go on. He's trying to put on a good face for the wedding, but he's just having all of these problems with drinking and things like that, as we know. He's having all problems with drinking. And of course, Yoens wasn't drinking. He was, in fact, doing drugs, but he wasn't drinking. And Lip has been drinking, and Lip's in a very bad state, and you don't know what's going to happen there. And everything seems to be going okay, though, at the wedding, because if, Fiona and Sean see each other, the wedding happens. But then Frank shows up, and things just get crazy here. Debbie does even show up with Franny. I mean, everything seems to really be going great. It really was. It seemed like it was going to actually work out. But then Frank shows up wasted at the last minute. He barges in, says that he's going to give Fiona away. He doesn't care what she thinks. And everyone's trying to get him out. They don't want him there. They know that him and Sean are getting into a fight. They don't want this to happen. They want things to go well for Fiona. And I love this scene with Frank because this didn't come across as Frank being an asshole. It came across as Frank showing that he does care about his family and he wants to be their first family. The problem is, it's too late. I've said it all season. It probably is just too late for Frank to do this for his family. Even though he wants to do this for his family, it seems like it's just too late for him to do that. And I don't really know what's going to happen there. We'll have to see. It's going to be very interesting to see what ends up happening with that. I didn't really know what was going to happen there. But you see that they don't really want him there, but I do like what he brings up, because they talk about how Frank is in a bad shape, and he says all of them are, between Debbie's pregnancy, Lip throwing up, Ian having Ian being bipolar, just everything that they're going through. Fiona, relationship after relationship, losing it, and then whatever's going on with Kev V, Svetlana, and then it comes out that Sean has actually shot up heroin. He's done heroin before the wedding, probably to make himself feel better, because obviously when you're an addict, you need that stuff to make you feel better, and that's kind of what's going on with Sean. And Fiona just freaks out. She has no idea she had no idea this was going on. She's really upset. Will runs out because obviously he's terrified when his father does this, and Sean runs after him shortly after. And this kind of makes Fiona realize that they can't go through, with this wedding. They can't go through with this wedding. They can't do this anymore. And it's not going to work anymore, unfortunately. And it really sucks that they have to, come to this realization, but they just can't do this. I mean, if Sean is going to keep doing all the stuff that Fiona hated him doing and doesn't want him to do anymore, obviously this wedding is not going to work. And they decide to break things off. They're not getting married. Fiona's now newly single again. I don't know if she'll see Sean again, but maybe this kind of is a lesson to Fiona that she kind of needs to be single for a little bit. And I think it's a good thing for her if she is single, because, she doesn't need Sean. She doesn't need all these men in her life. And she's fucked up relationship after relationship between Jimmy and, Gus. And Gus, who truly did love her, but she ruined that with Sean. And then Sean, who she knew had problems. But like I said, Sean and Fiona were good together. The problem is she just didn't like him doing heroin. That was a real problem. And he doesn't deny. I like that he didn't deny it, but they basically realized that the wedding's off and it's just not going to happen. It was really sad. I felt very bad for Fiona, but you know what? I'm glad she came to that realization. I'm glad this happened, and I'm glad that they didn't get married, because who knows what could have happened if he kept doing heroin and everything. Who knows what could have happened at the wedding? Who knows what could have happened to Fiona? I mean, there's no telling really where this could have gone. Very interesting, and I'm interested in seeing really what's going to happen with Fiona now that she's newly single. Back to Ian, though. Ian does in fact confess that he's bipolar, and this kind of gets him fired from his job. He actually does get fired, we see. And this doesn't ruin his relation with Caleb. Like, Caleb's not upset about this. He understands what Ian's going through. He's happy. I think he's even happy that Ian confessed, but Ian basically is trying to search for a job, we see. He heads to the ambulance station even though he was fired. He puts on his uniform, refuses to leave. Ian tells Rhea he's not going anywhere until he gets his job back, and he gives this really moving speech about how hard he has to work, how hard he has worked to get there and manage the bipolar disorder. It's a really nice scene. You really do see that, and basically it looks like he's going to get his job back, and it seems a little bit far-fetched. I definitely will say it. I thought it was kind of like, oh, whatever, he got his job back, fine, but it seemed a little bit too on the nose. Like, it just seemed like something bad could have happened, and it didn't, but Ian did get his job back, luckily. I'm happy about that. Lip, though, is in a very dire state, as we see in this episode. And also with Carl, it looks like, Luther and Carl, I mean, still Dom's father, they're still not really getting along very well at all. We know that Carl wants to become a cop, but will he be able to do that? We'll have to see. He even threatens to pistol whip Carl, and Dom flounces down a backless dress and distracts her father, basically. So, really crazy the way that's done. I like that Dom really wants to, really believes in Carl and really wants to pursue this, but can he do this with her father? I mean, her father is just so persistent on and so, insistent on them not dating, and he doesn't like Carl. Is there any way to fix this? We'll have to see. Very interesting. We'll have to see what happens there. But Lip, I mean, Lip is just in this dire state throughout the entire episode. He's drinking constantly, insists that he even goes to the alibi and says the class was canceled for Bulgarian Independence Day, and she isn't buying, because remember, they don't know that he was fired, and basically Kev tries to talk to Lip, make sure that he's okay, but Lip orders just more booze. He tells Kev that he got expelled, warns everyone to keep it a secret until after Fiona's wedding, and basically Debbie decides to confront him because she knows that something's going on here, and I love what she says to Lip, that basically he confesses that his life is fucked up right now, and she asks him if he's been drinking too much, and says straight out, I don't want you to turn out like Frank. And yeah, that's the thing. I've been worried that Lip is going to turn out like Frank. Just the way that Lip has been acting, the way that Lip has been blowing things off, the way that he's been going from place to place looking for things to go. I mean, in many ways, the Bianca Frank situation is very similar to the Lip Helene situation, because while Bianca didn't break Frank completely, for a while, remember, Frank was really grieving over Bianca, and Lip, Helene has turned him to alcohol, and that was the one thing we didn't see in this episode that I did want to see. I wanted to see, I want to see more of Helene. I want to just get one kind of closure with Helene. I think it would have been nice if we did that, which we didn't, and I kind of wanted more about that. Definitely, I enjoyed, I really wanted to see more of that, so I really just want one more scene between Lip and Helene, because she really is the reason he's drinking and the reason why all this happened, because Helene blew him off, and I really wanted to see more of that, but we didn't get to see that, kind of just went away. But basically what ends up happening is Yoans picks him up, he's about to get him to, he gives him a ride to rehab, and we realize that he is actually going to help him out. Lip is going to go to rehab, he's going to try to turn his life around, and basically, that's how this season ends, and it also ends with everyone dumping Frank into the ocean, kind of showing that they don't really care about him, they don't want him there for them anymore, and that's kind of how the season ends. So, overall, I thought this was a really good season finale. I did enjoy it overall. I think that Frank, the thing is that it's not that they don't, they appreciate that he's being there for them, but it's just too late. I mean, he's done all these things, and they just don't want him there anymore. He's smothering into their lives, he's giving them no space whatsoever, and I get that he's trying to be there for them, but again, like I said, it's just kind of too late, and they don't need him there right now. So overall, guys, those are my thoughts on the 3 episodes. Out of the 3, I think episode 11 was my favorite, but episode 12, I mean, it was inevitable, and that's the thing. I think we knew that something bad was going to happen, that something was going to happen where this wedding was not going to turn out right. This is Fiona we're talking about. Things don't go right for Fiona, and I don't think things will ever go right for Fiona till the final season, honestly. But overall, let me give you my thoughts on this season. This was, without a doubt, my least favorite season of Shameless. I don't think they ever had a clear idea of where they were going. I don't think they ever had consistent plot lines. I mean, the only really consistent plot line we had throughout this entire season was Debbie and her kids. Definitely Debbie wanting to raise the baby. That was probably the most consistent. And Fiona and Sean. Everything else seemed like they started up things and just it didn't work out. Like Lip, for example, and Helene. That wasn't working. They dropped it. Kevin V, remember the whole Giannis thing? Yeah, that went away very quickly because that didn't work out. Carl and his gangster business, that went away. Everything seemed to go away because it just wasn't working, and it really seemed like they had ideas. Remember when they were homeless for like 2 episodes? That went away. Everything just went away this season. That's really my biggest problem this season. I really wanted a more clear idea of where we're going. It never really seemed like they had a consistent plotline. Like, what was the season of Shameless about? I can't really tell you. I really can't tell you what the season's about. Maybe it's about trying to do things on their own. Maybe it's about the bad decisions they made. But every season's about bad decisions they made. Every season is them making terrible decisions, things like that. Every season has been about that. So I can't really give you a clear idea what the season was about. Last season, I think, was a lot more clear. Last season was about them trying to come back as a family after Fiona had left, and it just wasn't the same anymore. And then this season was about them getting ripped apart, I think, getting ripped apart, going off on their own. I kind of do see that. But at the same time, again, I don't really have a clear idea of what the season was about. I couldn't really tell you because I just don't really know at this point. I do think that Frank's initial plot line is that he's trying to be there for his family. I genuinely think he does care about his family and he wants to do something for his family. But like I said, it might just be too late for him to do that. Fiona's now on her own, and I'm hoping that they ditch this whole Fiona needs a boyfriend, because Fiona does not need a love interest. Fiona can get by on her own. I actually want to see Fiona single. I don't want to see them give her a love interest next season. I really don't want to see that. I think it's going to be unnecessary if they do that, and I really want to see her kind of realize that she needs to be on her own. Emmy Rossum has even said she's wanted Fiona to be on her own for a while, but the writers don't want to do it, which is really stupid, honestly. When you have your lead actress, who pretty much is the actress that's carrying your show and is doing an incredible job, and by the way, Emmy Rossum obviously was obviously incredible in this episode. Just from her, expressionless face, knowing what was going on with Sean, I think she kind of had an inkling that he was doing this, but didn't know. Sean and Fiona, I don't think they're done necessarily. I think there's always an open door for them, and I think it's gonna be like a Jimmy Fiona situation where he turns up into her life every once in a while. She's gonna have to make a choice, but I really want to see Fiona on her own next season. I don't want to see her have a boyfriend. I want her to realize that she needs to be newly single, and I hope they stick to that, because every season it seems Fiona has a relationship, she ruins it somehow, or something ruins it, and this wasn't her fault. This was not at all her fault. This was completely Sean's decision, and that's the thing. This was, I think, the first time where this wasn't her fault, and it's also a sign that she just can't be in a relationship right now. She needs to be on her own. She needs to focus on herself, and I think that really is what needs to happen. Debbie as well. I think Debbie needs to realize that she needs to not raise Franny on her own. Obviously, the doctor's really concerned. She needs her family to help out, even though she doesn't want them to. We'll have to see what happens with that. Carl becoming a cop, I like the way that that's going, and Lip becoming an EMT. I think they're doing that really well. I mean, Lip going to rehab and Ian becoming an EMT. I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to go. But overall, guys, like I said, least favorite season without a doubt. I never loved this season. Every episode there was something wrong. There was never one episode that was completely perfect. The only episode I think that was really close to perfect was episode 11, and then maybe the finale. But there was always something that I thought, that's stupid, or that's just not working. And the things that once made Shameless great aren't really making it great anymore. There was a time when Shameless was a fun show. There was a time when Shameless could have fun storylines. Now you just can't do that, because we need to move the plot forward, and it really seemed like they were always keeping things backwards and really weren't trying to move it forward. And that's been my main problem with this season, is that I never was fully invested. I never could tell where they were going with the storyline, and it just never really kicked off. I always felt like the season was just beginning. It never felt like the season was actually ever taking off. Like when they were homeless, yeah, definitely that's when I felt like it was taking off. When Fiona had her baby, yeah, I definitely felt that. But this whole situation that they've been through, and everything that happened, and just between everything, it just never seemed like they had a clear idea. It seemed like they were always changing what they wanted to do with the show, and definitely that was something that I was very upset with. I used to love Shameless. I still do really love the show. I think all the characters are really great, but I just want them to have a more clear idea of where they're going next season. That's really my best advice for season 7, is to figure out where they're going, have a more clear idea what's going to happen. I'm looking forward to season 7, though. I like the way this season ended. It ended in a hopeful direction, like season 5. Season 5 was definitely not as bad. I like season 5 a lot more than season 6. But overall, guys, I'm know what you guys saw this season overall. What you think of this finale? What you think of these 3 episodes? And I will see you guys. I might honestly just review the season next year, because honestly, I might just do that. Shameless is not a show I need to review every episode. Nowadays, I don't need to review every episode of Shameless. I might just review this season next year. We'll have to see. But I'm going to guys saw this season and these episodes in general. We'll see you guys next year, which will be for the finale of 11/22/63, which I am so hyped for. I already started watching it, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.